Hello again. It is Thursday, February 18th. That's the date, I'm pretty sure. 17th? No. Why do I do this to myself when I'm recording? Anyway, it is one of those days. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. So I'm back. I'm not wearing anything knit or crochet themed today, or knit or crochet, like handmade. So I'm just gonna jump into what I have to talk about today because I have quite a bit. I have had for the last few episodes now, but today I have a really good mix of everything, really. So let's just get into it. So with finished objects, I am happy to report that I have finished my very first knit test. It is not my first knit garment. I think it's my third knit garment. So it is the Hiraeth Slipover by Knitway. And I tested an earlier version. It went through some revisions after I tested it. So my construction looks a little different than what I imagine the real pattern will do. I'll have to insert a photo because there's no way I'm going to be able to put all of this on camera. But it's this beautiful vest with some fun ribbed collar and arm action. Here's the shoulder. It has a split hem. And then because of the yarn I used, it's varying thickness. It's a bulky yarn, but it just it's Homeland by Lion Brand, I believe it's Homeland. And it kind of is like thicker and thinner in some spots, so it's just kind of a variety of texture. So my lace didn't really, let's see if I can do this without messing something up. Each panel has a lace section on the front and back. This is the front. So you can kind of see where it's at because there's a little bit of a difference in texture, but it makes these V's. I guess it's not V's because it's an upside down V. So arrows, and then there's like a pull in between. It's really pretty. I don't know if I can make it, if I can like slightly stretch it out and maybe see if it'll show up better. I better not. There you can kind of see there's like an arm of the arrow, and it doesn't quite show very well with this yarn. You can kind of see it, but it is definitely more subtle. But I'll insert a photo of what it looks like in the outfit that I kind of put in my brain when I started testing this, because I think it's super cute and I'm excited to actually like wear it somewhere maybe. Even if it's just grocery shopping, I might have to break it out so I can just wear it for funsies while I'm still working remotely. So that is this. The pattern isn't out yet. We finished testing, and I think she wanted to do some more rounds of revision to it, but I will be sure. I'm planning on actually having this as my featured wearable for the podcast when that pattern releases to kind of celebrate it. So I'll be sure to report back on when that is officially out, but for now, sneak peek of a pattern to come. So that is that. Next up, I'm going to share what I made for my husband for Valentine's Day. I have now posted it on my social media, so you might have already seen it there, but it is a finished object, so I'm showing it here. It is an Umbreon amigurumi. It's an evolution from Pokemon. And this is the pattern by One Up Crochet. They have like all of the evolutions, I think, as well as some other fun geeky patterns. And I forgot that my husband had kind of picked this out. He didn't know that he was picking out the pattern, but I had stumbled upon this shop about a year ago, and I decided to buy a couple of evolutions for me to make for us. And he picked Umbreon, and I think I picked Leafeon for myself, which I haven't made yet. But I love, look at the little felt nose. This was a really awesome pattern. I'm always worried about doing felt eyes because cutting something that looks decent and proportional is a struggle for me, but I'm pretty happy with how the eyes turned out. They took longer than I want to admit, I'll just say that. And I did use worsted. I can't remember if that pattern called for worsted weight, but I used worsted weight yarn out of my stash. And it does stand. I wasn't so sure it was going to stand on its own. You have to do it carefully. I stuffed pretty firmly, but I guess I probably could have stuffed the body a little bit firmer just to make sure that was the heaviest. The tail, I had to really lightly stuff because that was what was putting the balance in jeopardy on this guy, but it does stand. So there's that. It was fun to do an amigurumi to kind of break up some of the larger projects I've been doing. So I really enjoyed having a small thing to kind of work on. Funnily enough, so about a week ago today, I believe, before Valentine's Day, I had finished it and I tucked it away in one of our guest bedroom, hoping that my husband wouldn't find it because he doesn't really spend a lot of time in there. But that's also the room that I've been working remotely out of, and he came home from work early that day, so I was still logged in at my computer working, and he came to say hello, and I completely forgot that I had it tucked kind of like behind me in a box, just kind of hoping, that it would be out of sight, out of mind. It was out of my mind apparently, because he just happened to zone in right on it and go, "Oh, that's a cute Umbreon. Did you make that?" And I immediately was just like, how could I have forgotten that I was trying to avoid him seeing it? Just completely forgot it was there. So he got his Valentine's present a little bit early. He liked it, so that's all that matters. Next up, and I just realized that I actually meant to wear it, so I might put it on after I show it. I was participating in the Make It to Cal 2021 that is hosted by TL Yarn Crafts, Tony Lipsy, and this has been on my to make list for a little while. Actually, since I dyed this yarn and that pattern came out, that's when I knew that I was going to make it with that yarn. Do I have it the right side? Lost my train of thought. Oh, I put it on my Make 9 list for this year, but I decided that because Tony was hosting the Make It Cal in, it's on week 5, so it started last month, that I would bump it up. I was going to make it a little bit later this year, but I bumped it up so that I could use that to participate with the crochet along and give me some motivation to make sure that I do it, even though it's on my Make 9. Figured it'd be a fun way to hit both goals at once. So the other day it seemed pretty obvious which side was the front and which one's the back. I think this is the front. So this is how it turned out. I used one full skein of fingering weight. Actually, I think I have I used a bigger hook than what the pattern called for because it was the only corded Tunisian crochet hook that I own. And so I didn't check gauge, but I figured that my mesh would be a little bit bigger and take a little more yarn than what the pattern called for. So instead of starting my ends, it's like a recipe-based pattern where you repeat, after you get started, you repeat the same 2 rows over and over again until you have, I think it was 10 grams left, which was like so much fun. I like those kind of patterns because then I could just use one whole skein, and I think this had like 415 or 420 yards, something like that. And I wanted to make sure that I extra had enough just in case, so I think I stopped at like 15 grams left. So I ended up still having like 8 grams that I'll just throw in. In fact, I'll show it in a little bit, my scrap project. So I'm not too worried about that, but this is how it turned out. That is the final edge with some pretty Tunisian knit stitch. And then I just love the meshy look of this shawl. It's definitely supposed to be like a warmer weather shawl. Like not, you know, blazing hot, but maybe like summer evening. Just because it is pretty airy. This was my speckled yarn that I dyed in the Made Knit Crate box. And when you look at the skein, and even the cake after I caked it up, it still looked like I had pretty stark speckles on it. But then once I started working it up, like you can even see here, there's definitely quite a bit of pink. You don't really see the purple at all. The pink looks like it bled a lot more. Like, not that it bled when I worked it up, it's more obvious that they weren't as stark of speckles as I thought they were after working it up, which I thought was really interesting to see. I'll post some photos too, or at least a photo of what this looks like. It's really hard to capture what it looks like, to be honest. Like, it's definitely something that, I don't know, in person you can see the color a lot more than the camera just really blows it out. So it really almost looks like, I guess on camera you can kind of still see the cream base, but in person it really looks more like a pink more than anything. So, but I officially finished one of my Make 9s for 2021. I completed a shawl for the Make It Cal 2021, and I used up something for my stash. So win-win all around. Oh, I meant to mention, it didn't fully block this, like I didn't wet block it, so it probably could have grown a bit more. I don't know, it's decent size. It's probably 4 feet from tip to tip and probably 2 feet. This definitely has some stretch left in it. I think the sides are pretty, like, I might have needed to crochet those a little looser because they're about as tight as they can go. They don't have a lot of stretch left. So I don't think it could have gotten much wider, but I suppose it could have grown more widthwise. But I steam blocked it because I noticed, it looks like it wasn't just me. I was worried that it was me crocheting wrong, because this was my first Tunisian crochet shawl and only my 3rd Tunisian crochet project, so still new. And I saw that it was kind of bunching up along, I believe it was this top edge here. It was kind of bunching up in places because, you know, it's a curve, so it makes sense, and I was really hoping that the blocking would fix it, and it did. So that's why I steam blocked it, just to kind of loosen up the yarn, especially on the edge, so that it wasn't bunching up. There's a better word that I wanted, but essentially doing that. So still kind of does a little bit on the bottom, but that's okay. I'm gonna put this on now for kicks. This is kind of just how I envision myself wearing it. So where, like, the triangle's kind of down and tucks around, and then the long end. I'm still new at wearing shawls, so I'm also figuring that out too. There we go, something like that. Just kind of let it gather up around my neck. And that's how I wore it in the photos that I took too. So it's a pretty light neck accessory. It's really pretty. So that is the third FO, actually my last FO. So, moving on to whips. So, I will start with the one I've been working on with my mom. We are still doing the Tidings to You, I think it's a wrap by Amy Gunderson. It was the knit pattern out of the Jimmy Bean's craft event for last year. So we work on it typically on Saturdays. It's been just about every Saturday. There's been a couple that have either been shorter or just not at all, but Saturday is our day to knit, and it's growing quite a bit. I don't want to drop it off the needle, but this is a straight edge at the bottom, and then that's the side. Just kidding. I mean, it is the side, but it's like kind of like arrowing up each pattern. So we're on the third section. Get some focus in there. And this, of course, is not blocked, so the lace will open up much more once it is blocked. But so far, I'm loving. I did the, excuse me, sorry. The, see, it's the cinnamon sugar colorway, I believe, is the one that I did. So it's a bunch of warm tones, like oranges and reds and browns and just lovely colors that made me very happy to look at. And my mom is doing the Northern Lights colorway, I believe is what it is, where it's like blues and purples and pinks and cooler toned colors. So this has been very enjoyable to work on. Lots of repetitiveness. So you know, that has its ups and downs. It's easy to kind of zone out and work on. But we're definitely splitting it up into just, I think we've started doing maybe 6 to 8 rows at a time, just so that we're not, you know, sitting for hours on end, knitting, just breaking it up nicely and doing little chunks at a time. So I think either our next session or the session after that, we'll have finished this third lace. It's alternating between really large and smaller chunks. And so I think after one of the next two, we'll be done with this one. It will be moving on to like the striped pattern between this and the next color, and then getting on to another small lace section. It's been a lot of fun. So next, I can't remember where I was the last time. I should really start using progress keepers and not just stitch markers so I can remember where I was the last time I showed it. I'll have to start doing that. Maybe I'll remember to do that now. Maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see. But this is the Adventurer wrap by Umbreon that I've been working on with my Yarn Cafe Creations and Dragon Horde Yarn Christmas at Hogwarts 2020 Advent. So last year's Advent, I'm working on the wrap in the order of each day I opened it. I didn't start it until last month. I'm pretty sure it was the new year before I started it. I spent a lot of time deciding on what pattern I wanted to make with this Advent, and I wanted to open them all first. That's not true. I don't think I necessarily wanted to open them all first. That just ended up being how it worked out. So this is the beginning with these lovely, I mean, unblocked. Look at, I don't know, this is the first time I did chevrons in knitting, and I'm just amazed at how crisp they are without blocking. So I'll do a slow rotation. I just started color 15 last night, so I am well into this, more than halfway through. So this is the 15th color up here. It's like greens and browns. It's Avada Kedavra, the name of the color. So it's all Harry Potter themed yarn for, oh, it's year 4, Christmas at Hogwarts. So based on the Goblet of Fire. And I'm really loving it so far. I think it's looking really nice. I kind of wish these weren't so close together in contrast because they kind of blend. But other than that, I think everything's had a really nice distribution so far. So I have, after this one, I have 9 more mini skeins to add, and then I'll be using a little bit of my 25th full skein, and then I'll be able to block it. So there's a pretty, I can't remember what it stands for, but I think the abbreviation is CDD, center something or other, decrease. That makes this like ribbing in the middle. I really like that. It's, I'd say, let's see if we kind of get that out to what it would be unblocked. It's probably like 1.5 feet wide. So I'm thinking it'll probably maybe be 2 feet after I block it wide. I don't know. I think it has a lot of room for growth though. It's a lacy piece too, so I could probably aggressively block it. It is a diagonal shawl, so the stripes run on a diagonal and it decreases on the top and increases on the bottom so that it keeps everything, you know, on that diagonal. So yeah, that is that. And what I haven't been using on my adventure wrap, I have turned around and added right after to my Sock Scraps Granny Stripe blanket by Leila McCullough. So I'm currently finishing up my previous color. But that is where we're at so far with 14 days, because I'm always a color behind on this. 14 days of my scrap Granny Stripe, and I am kind of obsessed with how it's working up. I really like the chaos, which is very much not me at all, but all of the scrap projects people have been doing lately have just made me so happy, and I wanted one of my own. So all of my fingering weight scraps are going to go into this blanket. As you can see, with 15 colors, I've had about, I think, 6 to 8 grams of each 20-gram mini so far left over, depending, just, you know, depending. It's kind of been sitting in that range, and that gets me like anywhere from 1.5 stripes to 2 stripes ish. It's about 3 feet long, I'd say. Yeah. And I'll just keep adding to it. So I'm going to do all of the Harry Potter ones from this advent. And then I have the leftover of my Party Punch shawl that I'll add to it. I might use that as a divider because I also remembered that I had some fingering weight left over from my Moana minis from Bad Wolf Girl Sits and Knits. And I made socks with the, I think it was a 5 set of minis. I made socks, but now I measured last night, like 8 grams left of each of those colors. I have less left of some of them, but just about the perfect amount. Not that I'm being too picky about that at all, because this is going to be my scrap blanket, and I'm just adding everything I can so that I don't have it in my stash, and it goes to good use. So after this is done, I do want to try and keep like the themes together. Like this is all the Harry Potter advent from last year, so I'm going to do all 24 of them first. I'm not going to add my full skein into this, so just the 24 minis of what's left. All of that will go here. Then I'll probably add this one, and then I'll do the Moana ones, keep them together, and then just kind of add, if I have like sets of things, keep them together and add them as I use them. So that is that. moving right along. Let's see. We're on my last whip. So, amigurumis. This is one I shared last year as like my, I really want to make this at some point, but I didn't start it. And this week I decided I was gonna start it. So this is my, again, it's a whip, so I don't have a whole lot to show. It's the Dragon Fruit Dragon by Skein Spider, I believe. For some reason I didn't write who on my notes, but I'll make sure I'll have, I usually put somewhere, I think I might have changed it to the top recently, but I'll have that information somewhere on the screen when I go to edit. This is what I have so far of my little Dragon Fruit Dragon. And right now it kind of looks like a little tadpole, but it will be a dragon at the end. I have other parts and pieces crocheted up, but I haven't finished everything, so we're getting there, but not quite. Just been doing a little bit here and there. Okay, I had to pause recording, so jumping back in. That was my Dragon Fruit Dragon. It's a free pattern, a video tutorial. So far I haven't had any issues working it up. I think I have the wings to finish. Let's see. I gotta do the horns and the arms and the legs still. And I gotta put seeds on the belly. So I might be halfway done-ish. One wing is crocheted, but I gotta do like the stitch detailing on it. The second one is almost all the way finished. So, progress. Anyway, now I'm actually gonna put that away for real. I wanted to share, I know I've at least recorded what will be a separate video for my channel that just kind of is more of like a vlog, I would say, because I'm just I'm word vomiting, which is what I do anyway, but more specifically about this project that I'm working on. So I know I've mentioned that I've wanted to do and decided to do the Traveling Seasons blanket that is in partnership with Lion Brand Yarn, I believe, but Whistle and Wool is the creator who is kind of like organizing the blanket, and it is Traveling Seasons, so each month there's a different designer or maker who is designing a block that pertains to that particular season. So right now they're doing spring. Only 2 have been released so far because we're in February, and I decided that I would do something a little different and make each season is going to be a row, and I wanted to do each row in a color that coordinated with that season. A solid color, because so far the 2 blocks that have been released have like stitch pattern detailing that I think could get lost with using like a variegated yarn. So I wanted to make sure that the yarn complemented that stitch definition and detailing and didn't detract from it. So, and I wanted to practice dyeing yarn with it. So this is actually my first attempt at doing spring's color. It is my first time dyeing more than one skein at the same time, and also doing multiple batches because I couldn't dye all of the skeins I needed in one batch. So for spring I'm doing like a muted yellow. I don't know what it's going to show up on camera, but I have two batches because they're a little bit different, and I've decided that I think I want to do an attempt to make them a little less bright. But you know, they look pretty similar, so that's why I'm trying to make sure I remember which one's which. I attempted to recreate the color. I couldn't even tell you which one's first and which one was the second batch. But I attempted to recreate this colorway colorway. Not that it's anything special, I just mixed up some yellow, muted yellow dye with food coloring. So that's what they look like right now. And really on camera, and I'd say in person, they look pretty, for being a tonal and for as semi-solid as you can get with hand-dyed yarn in a kettle. I think those are pretty spot on with each other, actually. I haven't done too close of a comparison yet, but they're fairly identical. I just want to go back. I think this might be the second batch. This looks a tiny bit brighter. I do want to go back and make it a little less, oops, sorry, that's out of frame. A little less bright. I like the tone. I hope that's the right language to use. I like the tone of this yarn, so I don't want it to get darker or lighter. I just want to add, basically, my plan is to fill a pot of water and add like a very light hand of complementary colors to give you like a brown. Again, not very saturated, so it would just be like dousing this in a mute tone is my goal. I'm experimenting too, so we'll see how it goes, but I think I'm pretty close to the vision that I have created for my spring color. I digitally played with creating a palette just to kind of give me a base place to start when I was actually going to translate it to yarn. So that's also been a process because it's the first time that I've had like a color in mind that I've tried to dye, whereas the other attempts that I've done, I've just been, you know, throwing in colors and seeing what happens and playing with speckles and dipping things and not really having like a specific goal in mind other than maybe like the process of it and learning the process. So that has been fun. The rest of my undyed yarn came in for this project. I'm doing 4 skeins of worsted for each color just so that I have a little bit extra. I'm roughly calculating needing 3 skeins for each season, but each batch I'm dyeing in 2 skeins, so this way I can use the same recipe twice, whereas I'd be worried that if I tried to half the recipe, since I'm still in the experimental stage, I want to make sure that I'm not affecting the color too much when I'm still trying to learn the relationship between what I mix and what I actually get. So this way it keeps it even in the terms of the amount of fiber I have, the amount of water I have, the amount of dye I add, and try to keep it as consistent between the 2 batches as possible. Next, I will be doing, I think it's blue next, so I do want to try and finish this yellow first and get it to where I want, because each color, each subsequent color that I dye, I'll be comparing to what I already have finished to make sure that I like the way they compare with each other and work together. My idea is that by making them muted versions of themselves, they will coordinate better than the colors I chose. So that's that. I wanted to wrap up today by sharing something that I got in the mail this week. So, oh no, further away than I thought. The Little Wolf Knits on Instagram started a Gilmore Girls themed club this year, and I didn't sign up for the club just because I'm not really doing clubs right now. But after she teased what the club ended up looking like, and I found out there were extras, I jumped on that party train. So, pardon the crinkling. While I get this out of the bag, I should have done it beforehand. I meant to do it beforehand and then I didn't. So I got the January sock set, which is Peach Pit, I believe, is the main color, and Peach Sauce. Maybe I have that backwards actually. I'm just gonna hold it up, but it is the Sunfish sock set. And there's a pattern that was designed by Little Wolf Knits to go with this, and I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I'm totally gonna use that pattern for this. Look. Let's get some focus on that. It is gorgeous. I couldn't not. I've been so in love with like these like pinky tones, like the dusty pinks and like the golden yellows, and they're combined here. How could I say no to that? That's a problem, but I love it. So there's the label, logo, and not only was there extra yarn from the club, there was a couple of extra stitch markers. So the Little Wolf Knits has, at least, actually, I think it might be every month. Maybe it was just January. I'm not 100% sure now, but for the January club at least, partnered with Little Bitty Delights. Oh no. Come on. Okay. I'll leave it focused because look at this. How cute is this little stitch marker? Like, I can't. It's just, it's too cute. It's too much. I'm obsessed. Come on. Oh, of course, that's backwards. I was trying to do that. I love it. So, I just figured I'd show that real quick. Also, cute little addition, some tea. So, that I fully plan on making. I think they're called like peach, something with peach in the name of the sock pattern. It has like a waffly texture, and obviously the smaller skein is the contrast, so it looks super cute and totally perfect. So that's already what I plan on doing with these. I know they had February clubs up recently. I don't know if they're still available for order, but they are mystery clubs, and I'm gonna assume it's not guaranteed that there will be extra every month. I think I just got lucky. So if girl things are things that you love and yarn, can't hurt, right? Who doesn't love yarn clubs? I love yarn clubs. I'm trying to be a little bit more frugal. Not necessarily just frugal, but more intentional with my yarn purchases. So this was a treat for me, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Talk to y'all later.